ItCast is our community outreach podcast that aims to increase diversity in conversations on health and sexuality. Through this work, we are creating a world where all people feel loved, honored, and respected. Visit us on Patreon to support the ItCast and learn more about our work at NikaCherrelles.com. That's NikaCherrelles.com. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel and please share with your community. And especially sending out a thank you to everyone who subscribed so far. We have hit 100 subscribers and we have to reach more and more people in our community and keep growing this conversation. So this is an ItCast Real Talk special feature with SF Pride Grand Marshals Melonie and Melorra Green. Glad, so proud to have you in the booth today.
Thank you for having us. Thank you so much. Thank you. I want to make the clarity, community Grand Marshals.
Community Grand Marshals. Can you share what the distinction is?
Yeah, so and then there's another layer, right? So public choice,
right?
Community Grand Marshals. So there are several Grand Marshals, and there are acknowledgments on how people really represent or are effective or make change or social justice work in their community. And so we were nominated by, I guess, someone on the board, or it came up in the board, and then from there to a certain body of people, and then it was shared with the public to vote. But they reached out to all of us to see.
Yeah, there were about 8 people who were nominated, and so all of us had to reach out to our communities, and we had to accept. Yeah, we had to accept the nomination, and then extend to our communities to vote. And you voted by email, and so you cast your vote, and so we had the most amount of votes, so we received the public choice community Grand Marshal.
Thank you so much. Thank you for voting for us, and thank you for everyone who voted for us.
Yes. Okay, so I love that. I love knowing, first off, I love knowing my vote counts and makes a difference.
Everyone counts it. Yeah, so your vote definitely counts. Thank you.
Yes. And it was such an honor, and I was so happy to see you too when that came out, community public choice, of course, looking at the work you do and everything that you do for the community. I mean, to me, when I saw you won, it was a no-brainer. I was like, yes.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes. So I definitely want to talk about, especially since we're on the topic, what this experience has been like for you. What's it been like the last year, moving through all the spaces you've been moving through all the way up until getting this opportunity, and what you've been doing for the community?
Honestly, this whole year plus has really kind of personally been like a reckoning with my own arrival, right? Like there's so many things in my job that I'm doing that I can be proud of, or that I acknowledge that I can be better at. And then there's that personal part of myself as a creative, as a designer, as like all these other things. And so it really created this moment to just be with how serious am I about my own dreams? How serious am I about my own care? From a mental to a physical, all the way to who am I surrounding myself with? When you get that time away, then it becomes and when I say away, I mean away from people. There's this context of a bubble. Then that space that you really didn't give a shit about before, because I was never home. We were always working. I was never home. Yeah. So now home has turned into sanctuary. Home has turned into a place I want to be. And then home became more a part of what's inside of me. So it made me more intentional about who I spend my time with, from the texting to the telephone, like picking it up and saying hello, to who I'm choosing to follow online, like all of those things, everything became a lot more precious. So as much as I had to deal with missing people, wanting to connect with people, at the time, a year ago, kind of being newly single. So like kind of being like, well, what is this? Like, how am I? Okay, great. Now there's this pandemic. How do you even get to know people? How do you even meet people? Then there's like, do I want anybody in my space? It's like all of these things. I became more precious. My home became more precious. And so I thank the pandemic for kind of pushing me into this awareness, and then kind of regrouping on who do I want to invite back in my life. You know what I mean? On a physical tip. So it's really been a reckoning. I mean, I say that word because that's how it feels at times when you're like, oh, hell no, I can't do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do shit. You know what I mean? So then you really choose. I'll be quiet so you can say, but that's kind of, yeah.
When you first asked the question, I thought about how I literally went through probably every phase of life. Like, so when we were when the lockdown was announced, I went through that 2-year-old trying to understand, is this real? You don't understand. We're about to open up the best Black co-working space. How dare? Wait, so who am I mad at? Okay, so this is like beyond the city thing. This is beyond, this is federal, this is national. Okay, well, okay, then I'm 4 and I'm like, wah, I don't want to do it. Well, then we're gonna wait, and then it's like, all right, 55. Now I'm like, all right, y'all, we gotta clean up, we gotta get out of here, we gotta, talk to our, everybody who used the space, put this in our newsletter. And that was all in a span of like a day, like less than a day, like just sitting in the Hall of Culture, watching muralist paint, knowing that in 10 days, we're going to open up our co-working space. And then to get 10 days out, that's not going to happen because of something that we can't see, we've never heard of, don't know if it's real, and here's the news. So it's just like all of that, not wanting to, and then getting real with that. I better tell my team, I better tell the community. And I tell you, probably every 3 months, that whole thing of like, you don't understand. Oh, wah. And then, all right, let's get in action. You know what I mean? And so even with the creation of this program where we invite Black creatives to take this professional development accelerator, right? So we do this thing and like, we asked for, we were like, okay, how are we going to pay for this? So it's kind of like, but you don't understand, this is important. So we reached out to all of our funders. Some said no, the rest said yes. And it's kind of like, okay, you do understand, but then you don't understand. So how do you just continue to share how to get in action, how to get in gear, make critical decisions fast, and still be present in the moment while trying to figure out if your family is okay? Is the building safe? How can we afford to pay for our team? Is anyone in our family going to die? People are dying on TV. So then you're like, am I, like all of these things come up, and then to slowly come out of it. And someone's like, you guys have been nominated. Should you accept, you know what I mean? For, Pride Community Grand Marshals. Honestly, I was so like this that I didn't even know it was a big, I was kind of like, okay, sure, yeah, let's, okay, yeah. Oh, what do we have to do? Oh, okay, yeah.
And I mean, that's some real, because we really were like, responding, working. And then one day it was like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Just like the whole, so just bumping up against crisis, trauma, family dynamics, personal dynamics, team dynamics, community dynamics, and knowing all of the work that's ahead, all of the uncertainty that's ahead, and at the same time being celebrated for the work you do. Have I done enough? We have so many issues. Am I worthy of this? There's so much going on. Are you sure? You know, and after kind of like sharing what we've done, I was like, if you don't throw your shoulders back,
Hey,
and ask your community if they don't mind voting for you, at least act like you care. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So doing that and getting the response just really revitalized. I mean, I was low. I was very sad, on E, trying to be there for everybody, hold all of the concerns and stuff like that from the community, and especially the creators that were having a tough time, gig after gig, space after space, you know. It's a lot. It's really a lot. And so it's just where we are right now, I feel a lot better.
yeah.
Even the acknowledgement of that we have done a lot or enough or whatever the hell that's supposed to mean. It really gave me permission to kind of take a day off, go get a massage, you know, just rub these knees. I bought that little thing on Instagram. Y'all know the one with the legs get wrapped all around.
Yeah.
Put that thing around my leg, child. You know what I mean? So right now, what we're on is self-care and rest.
Yes.
And I'm not saying we ain't doing nothing. I'm just saying, like, we are really prioritizing how to come back into our bodies, how to not perpetuate generational workhorsage, and how to, I'm getting very curious about how to accomplish what success looks like to me, so that I'm not riding off of anybody else's vibration, which is I'm trying to live for me. I really am looking at what it means to live for me, not based on what all these creators thinks I should be doing, or anybody in politics thinks I should be doing, or my family thinks I should be doing, or anything like what. I mean, very sobering year for all of us. So, Melorra, how you want to get up out of here?
Yeah.
You know?
That's real. One of the most powerful things I ever heard, I think you said it, Melorra, was actually a break is a revolutionary act.
Yes.
And like that, I remember I was at the African American Art and Culture Complex. I wanted to get some stuff done so bad. I was under the clock and I was like, this has to happen. And you looked at me and you were like, take a break.
Yeah.
You deserve that.
Yes.
And it had never occurred to me before that I wasn't giving myself space. There wasn't room to breathe and to create. So
Yeah.
that's huge.
Yeah.
I also love what you said, Melonie, what you said, like arriving. Like it doesn't always look it doesn't always feel the way it looks.
Right? Right?
Man.
And then you never arrive, right? Like,
right.
It's just something. It's something to be said for just acknowledging the space. Period. So thanks for asking that question, because I think it just really flows into why we're choosing the conversations we're having as community grand marshals, why, even in our role, why we're making the decisions we're making.
Yeah. Yes. So I do want to ask, because I feel like you two are some of the most engaged activists I know at this point in my life. Like,
wow.
So serious, I mean, I look at the work you do, I look at, how you operate, and it takes new enlightened voices and new people to step up and make a difference and say something. And I watch you do it time and time and time again. And I know that there's an experience to that. there's an experience to getting up and being in it every single day and having that drive and that passion. Um, so I'm curious to know what your thoughts are around being at the intersections of Blackness and queerness, how this relates to pride, how this relates to you personally and your activism.
Hmm. Man, the intersection of Black and
Oh, hold up.
there we go. Sorry about that. Um, a call came in, but the intersection of Black and queerness has come up so much lately. Um, you have to think about Pride being in the month of June. And June is one of the blackest months for Black people. Okay, we got Juneteenth, we got
Black music,
we got
month.
Black Music Month, we got Black Family Reunion all over the place. People have family reunions all over the country. There's just so many things that June represents for us. It's the end of school. It's the first month where you get to just be with your family, however that looks. You know what I mean? And you don't have, your hours are different. You just see you're traveling, whatever that is, however that shows up. And so I don't think that I considered how Melanie and I navigate just as queer Black women because we're so private. Like depending on if you know us, you don't know who we're dating. You don't even know what that looks like. And sometimes depending on how you represent yourself, it could be a guessing game. I'm not sure. But we're just kind of private in that way. And I think at the intersection of Black queerness, it was when some people realized we're queer, first of all. And then I think it was also a space for some people to realize that we're not here to merge the two in social justice. We're here to honor the two in saying the names of those who have done so much in this general movement of Blackness, in this general movement of moving our people forward. There are voices of Black people at all types of walks of life. Black atheists, Black Christians, Black Jews, Black this, Black that, Black gays, whatever, have come together to move our collective agenda forward. Now, for all the Black queer people, what do we believe in? What do we require? And understanding who we are for ourselves as a separate dynamic, if we choose, allows us to determine how that impacts other parts. I'm not saying that we don't belong. I'm just saying that there's a way that we have to carve a lane for ourselves to even be safe, to talk about how that looks. Just how do we want to express joy? How do we want to be a safe space for other queer young people coming up where we know it's not safe for them sometimes? Who are we in the space of new conversations, understanding what we had to deal with? A lot of times we make it and it's like, woo, let them fend for themselves, honey. I have made it. I got my little, safe bubble, or I don't give a fuck. I'm out. I'm this. There's so many levels of Black queerness, and we all know how to protect those who aren't out. There are some people 40 and 50 years old that all of us, when they come around, we ain't saying nothing because we know Charles ain't told his family and blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? So it's very complex, even at the intersection. The intersection has an intersection, you know?
Yeah.
I
think you kind of nailed it. It's there's so much and it's rightfully so, but there's so much sensitivity around Blackness and the brand of Blackness. And I think that now that there's a view on Juneteenth, there's a way that a lot of people want that to have its space and that story to have enough room to grow in this country now that it's a national holiday, and that's a whole other dialogue. But given that more people are going to be knowing about it, celebrating it, acknowledging it, there's just a thing about, how we gonna eclipse Juneteenth with pride, given pride has always been a point of contention for the Black civil rights narrative, even though we talked about our place in the movement. But let's be real. A lot of times when you say gay or queer, just the brand of it all, there's a vision of a white man. Okay. And so if it's not a vision of a white man, it's a vision of a white woman. And that national figure is something that I think Black folks who have an issue with the intersection, especially when we talk about Juneteenth, there's such a protection. It's like, well, I want to repel that because I want to be clear on who's in the space, who gets to represent. And if y'all can't figure out how to have your own damn space in the queer community, why would you bring that shit to Juneteenth? I think that's kind of the context that a lot of folks are dealing with, because we know that there's a lot of co-opting in this particular community, that I think, is one of those things we should kind of get around to at some point. When we talk about space of safety, when we talk about space that has Black in particular and Black and brown people feeling good about where they go and how they hang out and what they do, and how do we make community and create community when a lot of the structures that say this is a community you either can't afford, or there's some red tape around why you can't have it, and all those other things. And we keep pretending that because our songs are being played and because our dances are happening throughout, that there's inclusion. And there has to be a bigger conversation around what that means before we start talking about lumping things together. That's just a small part of how I feel about it. And leaving the holiday out of it just on the strength of just Blackness, which is really more of what I'm pointing to. There is just that piece that we have to acknowledge. There is that gay line that is very inappropriate to the Black community, to the story of Black women in particular, where a lot of white gay men feel like they can say bitch and all kinds of other things to us as an expression. So anyway, not to go on a tangent, but just thinking about all these things that tend to show up when we're talking about what it means to even have a damn Black gay environment, and then what does that mean to be included in the community at large, when I don't want to say majority, but it's enough to feel uncomfortable as a mass collective thought that this still ain't cool.
Yeah.
And we got maybe a third in our feeling that says it's cool. So how do we push that or include that 2/3? Because that's a big environment to have to kind of figure your way. And let's be real, a lot of us choose not to. And so why do we always have to choose not to? Could be in someone else's lap to choose something else. I don't know if you want to say.
No,
okay.
That was brilliant, and thank you. I know this space, like we focus on a lot of things here. We talk about race, culture, identity, class, religion, and so to be able to have this conversation on intersectionality is big. And I love what you said about the brand of Blackness.
Oh, Lord.
Like what we assume Blackness to be, just like what we assume masculinity or femininity to be, what we assume any other ethnic group to be, and that it has to fit this bubble. Like if it steps out of that bubble, then it doesn't belong. And I know for myself, it's been like I've had my own personal challenges around like being in this conversation, and all of a sudden that conversation, it doesn't seem like I was ever there. And
Right.
it's like as a Black activist, I get to be in Black spaces, and as a queer activist, I'm in white spaces, and people forget that I'm a Black activist, and I'm like, let's be real. Um, so I love that. And I got really excited when you said inclusion. I know we like there was a huge theme around Black liberation recently, and I want to talk about like the difference between liberation and inclusion. Like these things are not anyway. I think y'all get the question.
Well, before I jump on the liberation and inclusion piece, I want to just say one more thing about branding, because I think for anybody who missed why branding was important in what Melonie said, and even the acknowledgement you gave, is that we treat our race, which is made up, that's a whole other dialogue, but we treat this thing like it's solid and staple, but it's not. And why brand of Black is important is because brands follow trends. And if you realize that we are treated like a trend, then you'll step outside of it being a brand and really figure out who we are, know thyself, not on some hotep just shit, but like really knowing who you are for yourself, asking other human beings in your family so you can get that out the way and then start creating from there. May even find people who are really a part of you that don't even look like what the brand said. We can't even really figure out what Black is because we're trying to tell Africans that they're African. We're trying to tell Black people here that they're from Africa. We're trying to figure out how to let people not figure out they from here. And we holding on to this name. But if you look in the census, how many times did that change?
Mm-hmm.
And every time they change it, they pick a new one that we got to figure out how to love, figure out how to advocate for. Then we're going to brand that. By the time we brand that, it's going to be a whole other category. I wonder who we're going to be in 10, 20 years. Because Black not going to be hot no more. So we got to like really understand who we are as human beings and stop following these trends.
Mm-hmm.
It's killing us. It's killing us. So, inclusion. So liberation and inclusion, I feel like I feel like you can't have one without the other. I feel like, and honestly, I kind of judge the word liberation for a little bit. And I feel like it's a personal thing. And then I feel like it's a collective thing. And one of the two you can't control. You know what I mean? And so when I think about liberation of my mind, body, and spirit, that should be something that I internally feel and hold, such that I treat my body a certain way. Like you should be able to look at me and tell I love myself by the way I eat, by the way I rest, by what I allow my body, by what I allow myself to watch, see, and witness. And then knowing the difference between the importance of the same, right? Like I had to watch them shoot that boy. Did I? I had to watch that cartoon. Did I? I had to watch that movie. Did I? Like really reassessing what we invite in. And then on the outward part, really reassessing what we invite. really reassessing what we invite in, because then you know what to include. And I know we choose inclusion like everybody should be in here. No. Mm-mm. Inclusion means that whitey gonna push from the table. Sometimes Black people gonna push from the table, and making it not mean one thing because you know fully who you are. And a lot of times we get ego in the way. So inclusion and liberation are, to me, synonymous, because it's a way of freeing yourself from attachment in a way that not saves, that gives you a radical quality of life beyond generational habits, beyond what you think you deserve because my first love left me, beyond my mama never hugged me, beyond I was this at 5, beyond, like, for real, like for real. It's synonymous because you really know what to leave behind, and you know what belongs to you, and you know what doesn't belong to you.
I love this. I just heard personal liberation means that you get to include yourself in the spaces where you belong.
And, part of it, I'm just going to put this in like tangible matter. So I think about the Castro, right? The layout of the Castro. And you would be hard pressed to find a Black lounge, club, bar, that is very clear and intentional, right? Or even like Black and brown people, right? None there. So when we talk about everything that Melorra shared, it's that if people who were there right now determine what the Castro looks like, who has the power to assess that, right, and make it available, then inside of inclusion, inside of liberation, if I'm present and I know what I bring, and I know that I can only bring so much, then I know that something's missing, right? So if I know that something's missing inside of inclusion and liberation that we can all have and we can all be, then I'm going to get more than curious about including the ingredients that are missing. So the problem is that whiteness has been branded as complete. They don't require anything else. You get that? Like if it's white and it's, especially if it's all white, nothing's missing. This is a full functioning environment. That's crazy making. That's insanity. When you look at nature, there isn't one damn tree, and that's the only tree in the forest. How successful will that ain't even a forest. That's not even nature anymore, right? Like, so how do we get real about what is needed?
That's curation.
You can't get away from what is needed. And nature has shown us that diversity in purpose, diversity in actions, diversity in contributions. Some of it looks and feels whack, but it's a part of the ecosystem. Some of it you can't understand, but it's a part of the ecosystem. Everybody has a part. And so if you are constantly running around here building environments with one damn thing, and you think that that is complete, then there is something to look at in your liberation, and there's something to look at in your inclusion. It's more of a deficiency of sight and perception when one view, one shade, one hue, one perspective is enough. And that idea of white as complete, no matter if it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, it doesn't matter. We've been branded that it don't matter if it's one white, it don't mean nothing else is complete, it's perfect. But if you see something Black showing up, let something be out of place. Just let them show up. Wonder if they can. First thing you got is a ton of questions. That's the first problem. So going back to that intersectionality and going back to these environments and going back to how it all plays out and going back to what it's been like for Melorra and me, doing this work all this time, it has been meeting those very questions. And I said this earlier in a conversation we had. A lot of times you're bumping up what people think you the fuck deserve.
Yep.
So if they don't think you deserve a high quality of this, or even a rightful place at the table, or even just to be around, how you think they're going to talk to you? How you think they're going to engage you? So you're met with what people think you deserve, and that needs to be checked. That's the part that needs to be checked,
But even the discovery of that for the other person, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I didn't even know I was navigating. I didn't know that was there. Let me look at that. Not, I'm a bad person. Y'all just think I'm a bad person. No, discover what that is and make your life better because of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. We get pruned all day. Okay. You too.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I'm really present too. I didn't have what you were saying before, and I really get what you're saying in the space of inclusion can't even necessarily exist in this environment. Like there's something radically missing to even begin talking about inclusion. And this conversation, I mean, it has deeper roots. And that's one of the things that we open up. It's like every time we think we've scratched the surface on one thing, there's a multitude of layers below that we have yet to heal, yet to come close to.
It's like trying to force someone with fourth grade knowledge, like force them to, you better get into this physics and produce. If you mentally, for whatever reason, can't get there, that's not even where you live, that's not your knowledge base, you ain't never had to think about no damn physics, and y'all you've been thinking about is pushing these three bears together to make red and blue bears, like, okay, so we've been red and blue bearing it all over the damn Castro. We've been red and blue bearing it all over the Pope because you haven't had to think bigger than yourself and whatever you can figure out doing. And so it's like expansion, beyond that.
You're about to say. No, that's real.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm having this experience with this inclusion conversation it's more of the other rising. And like, and there is so much other rising out there. It's like white or other. And when you're in that other category, it doesn't matter how you show up, what you look like, what you do, you're not going to fit in here. You don't belong. And trying to be included in the white context is also not where the direction we need to be going in by any means. I mean, and the thing I was going to say earlier is it's okay to make mistakes. Like I'm specifically,
oh my God.
I'm talking specifically to white people who are dealing with fragility and guilt. It is okay to make mistakes in the growth of this process.
Yep.
And that's been something where I see people, they're like, I don't want to mess up because there was a mistake that happened once and someone was offended and we're never going to get over it. And it's like, people have been offended for generations.
Right. Okay.
Like, at least make new mistakes, at least make mistakes that are moving us in the direction of actually having something of substance.
I'm offended that you won't keep trying. I'm offended that you won't keep trying because I see you keep trying in school. I see you keep trying on that date. I see you keep trying to push that spoon in your mouth. I see you keep trying in traffic when you're running late, but you're going to give up on this?
It's too easy
and
to do.
You won't? You taking a nap.
Thank you for saying that. For real.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm offended you won't keep trying. People love to give up on Black folks. Woo! We just say one thing and it's hell and high water, but they can get out there and rock climb and get scuffed up by the rocks, fall all the way down, and man, I'm gonna get backed up on that rock. And baby, we look wrong. And it's like, hey, she's upset. Yeah, she's upset. She's upset right now. And what? Next.
Yes. Yes. Um, mm, this almost doesn't feel appropriate to switch to.
You can switch to it.
So I want to talk a little bit around liberation and sexuality, because there's a whole other discourse there. And my personal experience is that Black people are not yet fully liberated around sexuality. And this isn't even necessarily a question about Black people specifically, but just looking at what, like, how people are approaching sex, what it looks like now, and what sexual liberation, like, actually, like, that conversation. So that's the shift. Little
Segue.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you want to jump in. I think from what I'm hearing and what I'm personally experiencing is people taking their time more to get to know people and people being a lot more cautious. Yeah, it's been a minute for a lot of us. And, you want to get on back out there, but by now, a lot of people have had so many catastrophic or critical or aha or life and death moments to where a decision you would have made prior to the pandemic, you at least think 2 to 3 more times about it. And your standard and level of thinking about yourself is completely different. Like I've heard so many more people talk about love, talk about family, acknowledging healing, acknowledging self, doing mirror work, like all of this stuff that we didn't have time for before, or we didn't prioritize before, or it just didn't occur as something that you who have this long list should put on the list because there are much more important things there, without realizing that prioritizing yourself is that revolutionary marker of representing. Like there's a word I want to use. You know how like we get so proud of this person because they did it, right? They went out there and maybe let's go with a basketball player. People can relate to that. So we've seen this child go from high school, no, junior high to high school, and then college, and then they make the pros or whatever. And we know that they exercise and they had the conversations and they practiced and they played and they kept up with their stats. There's this form of celebration that happens. And I just wish that we could do that for ourselves, like personally. What are my stats? Personally, where am I energetically? Personally, have I practiced? Personally, have I eaten? I can't get on the court and play hard without taking care of myself and stretching. I can't get on the court hard if I don't have that break in between seasons to let my body recover and restore. So like the way that we celebrate these people that get out there and sacrifice their bodies, like they talk about athletes, I just wish we would, in a sense of sexual revolution, in a sense of sexual liberation, I wish we would take that on, for ourselves. And I wish that, and I'm saying this to myself now because I have so many questions. I have so many things I thought I liked that I realize I don't like. I have so many things that I thought I wanted that I'm not sure I want. And just this whole moment in time has just changed everything for me.
Yeah. To the point Melorra made, and I'll keep it brief so we can get to the next question. But I do think that this is softly creating like this more intentional ripple. I don't know if it means like more of a courting space or just like some sort of environment before, right? Like I think we were all just kind of going in, not like it was just sexually rampant before, but now there is this moment to kind of see what's what. I mean, I know we're open and people are coming together, but there's still that real close to me though. Your mouth to my mouth though, like that's different from a fantasy, right? So you really gotta make sure. And I know that there's a lot of different conversations around what safety looks like right now. So I think that if the win could be just a more compassionate, loving environment, if I could get hokey, in that.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the hokey. I like it. And I love hearing like, things are slowing down and people are talking more. Like sex
Mm-hmm.
is a form of communication. And
Mm-hmm.
communication, if you don't have like the building blocks, like we talked about like the fourth grader and like trying to force physics.
Yeah.
If you don't have the building blocks of communication, then you're going to ultimately have something missing when it comes to sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a growth process. So I love that. And to be totally straight, I was trying to make sure that I hit our time parameters. So the last question I got is there anything else that y'all want to share before we wrap up? Any resources, anything people need to know?
Yeah, I mean, the thing I'll share is 777. No, I'm just playing. The thing I'll share is if you are a Black creative looking for a place to present your work, gather and meet new Black people, other Black people, old Black people, however Black people, and learn, develop, take your life on, please consider visiting us at AAACC.org, or you can go to our social media at AAACCSF. That's for the African American Art and Culture Complex.
And the Instagram is AAAC Complex.
Boom. Thank you. And then I would say anybody creating space for queer singles to get together,
Yeah.
hit me up.
That's something that's about to happen. Like, there are a lot of ways that we've got to expand those opportunities because people are going back out, going to bars, going to other spaces, having more social time. And to seize that opportunity to create additional space for Black and brown queer folks to come together would be amazing. So definitely consider the African American Art and Culture Complex as a space, and even coming together to identify some other spaces in the city where we want to be and just like show up and do things.
And then Melonie and I are moving into consulting as well. We also have a virtual reality lab. We're also in the cannabis industry. And so, as a conversation of how we can really create equity, I know that there are people on the ground doing that work. And I also know that there are a lot of people who still need support. So I just want to put that out there and say, if you're interested in one or all three of those things, you can hit us up hit me up on my IG. I'm not the best at checking. I won't be checking it every day. I'm just saying, Radical Rest. But MG Bowtie, I do check that at least 4 or 5 times a week.
And mine is the Wonder Twin, all spelled.
Yes, as it sounds.
As it sounds.
Yes. Beautiful. I'm super, super grateful. And I just, for a little bit of clarity, when you're talking about building Black queer events, were you offering the African American Art and Culture Complex?
That is definitely a space that we're saying is available.
Yep. That's one
that.
of the spaces.
One of.
But I also want to be able to meet people outside of my job. So
Right.
I'm just saying, like, those who are creating space like that just want to be like, yo, come to this space. Yes, that How,
Yes. Hey,
Anyway.
we're gonna get you on some invite lists. I love it. I love
Yes.
beautiful. Thank you both so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, this is such an honor. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. The ItCast is our community outreach podcast that aims to increase diversity in conversations on health and sexuality. Through this work, we are creating a world where all people feel loved, honored, and respected. Please visit us on Patreon, support the ItCast, and learn more about our work at nikacherrelles.com, NikaCherrelles. And also subscribe to the YouTube channel and share with your community. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you here next week.
Bye. Thanks for having us.